y'all. Kinsey Schofield here with royal author Valentine Low, one of my favorite guests. I would have you on every day.
That's very kind. I think the audience might get tired of us.
They might, but I'm not so sure. So you wrote this incredible book called Courtiers, and this came after a pretty bombshell piece you wrote where you exposed details about some history that I was completely unaware of, where some of the members of staff at Kensington Palace had felt bullied by Meghan Markle. First of all, how many times have you had to say the word bullied in the last 5 years?
I say it in my sleep now.
What made you confident in pursuing this investigation? Because Harry and Meghan are very litigious, and I think that it was brave of you to pursue this the way you did.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It was a very important factor, the litigious nature of Harry and Meghan. So I knew my sources. I trusted them. I was able to cross-check various things. I talked to multiple people. I spoke to people at one step removed as well who backed up the story. And I also had sight of various bits of documentary evidence. I can't really go into that, but I saw things which totally backed up the story. I had utter confidence. But I knew all the time that at that time, Meghan was suing the Mail on Sunday.
Yes.
It was a court case which eventually she went on to win. So we knew how litigious she was, and I had many conversations with the Times' chief lawyer, Pierre Osama, and she and my editor at the time, John Witherow, wanted to be absolutely certain we were very strong on our facts. To the extent that we were originally going to run the story on a Saturday, and I thought we were ready to go,
Yeah.
and then the editor at the last minute said it wasn't quite there, which was a moment of great difficulty. A moment of difficulty for me. I was quite upset about that. Also, a difficulty for my sources, who were kind of all ready for the story to come out. Then for it to be delayed, they started wondering, would the story come out at all?
Now, and this is crucial because we're in the lead up to the Oprah Winfrey interview with Harry and Meghan, and we don't know what this interview includes. I mean, I think we're all watching it with our jaws on the floor when it actually lands. But we do know that Harry and Meghan are critical of the British royal family. And was that one of the reasons why your sources wanted to get ahead of this interview? Because they wanted, I don't want to say to defend the British royal family, but maybe they did want to defend the British royal family.
No, it wasn't about that. It was about the fact that if the story had come out after the Oprah interview, it would have just looked like sour grapes. It'd be lost in the noise. But Meghan would come across as this heroine, this person who'd been victimized, the royal family, who'd been treated terribly badly. And the whole narrative would be about what she and Harry said about their experiences with the royal family. And it would just get lost. No one would really care. And the important thing was to get it out beforehand so people would listen to their story, and that they would look at what they claimed in Oprah in that light.
And is it okay to ask you what changes were made between that Saturday and when it actually is published? What were the tweaks or the...
It wasn't so much tweaks as additional verification.
Oh.
Just making sure that everything was watertight. And we saw that because before publication, we put the allegations to Harry and Meghan, and we got a very, very long letter from their lawyers. And then sometime later, we got another slightly less long letter from their lawyers. But basically, being very, very feisty, very strong,
Basically saying, like, watch your back or we'll come
watch
after
out,
you.
yeah, exactly. And then we published, and after that, we didn't hear a word from them.
Radio silence. That speaks volumes. When you first heard about the allegations, were you surprised? Because I do think when Meghan stepped away, when Harry and Meghan stepped away from the royal family, they did a really great job of making the story that they felt unfairly, I almost used the word bully, unfairly treated by the British media. And as an American, I think I had digested that and assumed that it was true. So was there any of that in your mind? Like, well, I really am going to, I'm really going to go over this with a fine-tooth comb because they are going to challenge this based on a narrative they've already started.
Yes, we always knew they would challenge it.
Yeah.
But it kind of follows a familiar pattern. So there had been one or two stories which suggested there were difficult relations between Meghan and her staff. We'd seen them, and the phrase "Dutch is difficult" had already been used. But and we knew Meghan was angry about those stories, and we knew she challenged that narrative. But you look back a few years to the Diana years. Stories had come out sort of hinting that the marriage was in trouble.
Yeah.
But no one knew for certain or the details of it all until Andrew Morton's book came out. And then suddenly, all those tabloid stories, which some people had been very sniffy about, very dismissive of, they suddenly looked at it in a completely new light, and people realized, actually, these were based on truth, or if not, were absolutely copper-bottom truth. Mm-hmm. And that's what happened with the bullying story, my bullying story. People realize that if the Times runs a story like that, Times is a newspaper that people respect, if the Times runs a story like that and doesn't get sued, mm-hmm. there's probably something in it. And suddenly you realize that all those tabloid stories earlier suggesting she might be Dutch is difficult, actually, maybe they're true.
I feel silly acknowledging this, but it is such a great example of journalistic integrity that you gave them multiple chances to respond to it versus, releasing this article and surprising them with it, which I think would have been beneficial to you. And because Meghan does release a statement saying that you're participating in a smear campaign against her. Doesn't she do this prior to it actually coming out?
Yeah, that was in one of the lawyers' letters, that phrase, calling it a calculated smear. You just have to deal with that.
Yeah.
It's we've got broad shoulders. Mm-hmm. We're sure of our facts.
Yeah.
And if that's what she wants to say about it, well, we'll report that too.
Yeah. I just think it's interesting, and it's a reflection of adulthood versus. So the Hollywood Reporter, I know that you saw that article where they say they've spoken to a dozen of Harry and Meghan's former and current employees in the States. This is in November of last year, well after Courtiers, well after you released this incredible piece before the Oprah Winfrey interview. Yeah. That Hollywood Reporter article was this long. Remember how small it was? I mean, it blew up, but it was so small. And Harry and Meghan's reaction to that were to go to a grocery store entertainment magazine called Us Weekly and ask their employees to give these glowing testimonials about working with Meghan Markle. I feel like you're playing checkers and they're playing chess sometimes when it comes to the media. I thought it was silly to react in such a way to such a small piece in the Hollywood Reporter, although it is a very distinguished publication. It wasn't like the expose we later get in Vanity Fair. Yeah. It wasn't like your book. It wasn't like the piece you originally wrote. But B, they don't even go to Variety or somebody that competes with the Hollywood Reporter. They go to a grocery store rag. Are they really trying to talk to their audience when they respond to these things? Are they not worried about the mainstream all over brand? Have they realized we can't control that? Are they trying to go directly to the people they think are going to buy rosé?
I think there might be something in that, but also I think they recognize that in a funny way it doesn't matter who they go to, because once they've gone to someone, it's out there. I mean, the same thing happened when Meghan's friends spoke to People magazine.
Oh, yes. And we found out later that she was behind, well, we found out later she gave them permission, correct, in court documents, even though she played the I didn't know card at the time?
I can't remember if we found that out. But they said it's what everyone believed.
Yeah.
And it would be stunning to think that they'd done that on their own volition without
Knowing
checking.
how she burns bridges, yeah.
She certainly burns bridges. And people can probably scarcely remember which magazine it was, but because it got followed up in every media outlet that had the slightest interest in the royal family. So you just have to get your message out. And maybe she deliberately chooses fairly compliant media. So I'm sure
I think we all know that.
Us Weekly would not be checking too much. They'd be to say, thank you very much.
Yeah, exactly. That's a very good point. Although they do tend today to favor People magazine. There are some outlets in the States that they go to pretty religiously.
Yeah.
People went on their first faux royal engagement with them, and they're only taking like one media outlet, and they want that media outlet to relay to everybody else what's going on there, and they tend to be favorable. Is that sustainable? I feel like they probably look at the Royal Rota and assume that it's something similar, and if they just minimize it down to one, they can have even more control over it. But is that sustainable for this couple?
It's hard to imagine that it is sustainable, because surely these spoon-fed media types will begin to question, begin to push back. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know how much self-respect and integrity they have.
I know. Well, that's what I say sometimes when somebody asks me, why do some of these American media outlets cater to them? I say, well, it's not every day you have access to a duke, a prince, Princess Diana's son, the king's son. Sometimes it is all about this. They do feel like it's special access because he is still King Charles's son. What was it like for you to open up Vanity Fair and read that incredible expose where, Vanity Fair seemed like it was a Sussex-friendly publication at one time. It was nice to see them, I don't want to say it was nice to see them be ugly. It's certainly never nice to see anybody be ugly, but it was nice to see them be bold like you were and ask tough questions,
But also, it was a very thoughtful piece, and it was a very fair piece. It had some sympathetic moments towards them, so it wasn't a complete hatchet job.
Right.
And it's always when you're fair, as I always try to be in my pieces and in my books. When you're fair, that people will take you much more seriously.
Yes.
So I think that was the point, and it was obviously very well researched. And my feelings on reading it, a bit of me feels validated, but actually I didn't need to feel validated,
Right.
because I already knew that what I said was right and that people
It's not
it.
just that though, but you fired warning shots. Behave. Change the way you weren't saying that, but if I get called out on bad behavior, obviously I'm going to try to change my bad behavior because I don't want to be called out again.
Yeah.
And it felt like you put it out there and you said, these people were devastated and they left their roles. Some people grow up dreaming of working for the British royal family. It's my understanding that you don't make a lot of money. You're doing this. You're doing this because you want to serve the royal family. It looks great on a resume. It only looks great on a resume if you stay a significant amount of time, because everybody questions somebody that leaves after a year or 2 years or less. So when you're doing this, you feel like you've won the lottery, and this is something that your parents can be proud of and your grandparents are bragging about. It's hard to leave the British royal family.
Yeah, and some people do leave quite quickly because they're in junior jobs and there's a churn and all that. But yeah, these people who left earlier, they left for a good reason.
Mm-hmm. And they left heartbroken.
Yeah.
So did you feel at all when you read the Vanity Fair piece how unfortunate that things haven't improved?
Yes, for things to improve, though, you have to listen. And I don't think Meghan listens. I don't think she hears criticism. That's why she's so difficult to work for, because she doesn't hear advice she doesn't want to hear. She doesn't hear advice she doesn't like. So if I write a piece and she doesn't like it, I'm just the evil British media.
Yeah. I think you're nice.
Oh, thank you.
Were any of the sources you spoke to for both that Times piece and your book, were they nervous? Were they frightened?
Certainly for the Times piece, people were very nervous. I mean, I had to make quite complicated arrangements to talk to some people, and there was a strong element of nervousness and worry, and they were still, some of them were still in a very fragile state. I mean, and this is extraordinary because it was 2.5 years later. It was 2.5 years after that memo was written. And they'd left the employ of the royal family, and they still were in a psychologically delicate state as a result of what happened to them at that time.
And a lot of these people, when they signed these agreements, which means maybe not some of the people that talk to you, but some of the people that leave, they tend to be asked to sign agreements that say they won't say anything about working in the royal household. Is that true?
Absolutely.
And so there are, many people have asked me this before, and we've discussed this before, but I think it's worth mentioning because I know people will ask this again. Even if their NDAs were lifted, a lot of these people don't want to become the face of this drama. They don't want to be. They don't want to be doing the interview circuits. They have no desire to put themselves out there. So in case they ever were given permission to talk publicly, you have told me previously you doubt that they would. Is that correct?
Absolutely. I think they are happy leading their new lives, doing whatever new job it is they do. And they don't want the media on their doorstep. They don't want to have this kind of target on them. And certainly at the time I was writing that story, they were very worried about what Meghan would do to them. About they viewed her capacity for revenge as infinite.
Well, I hope you don't mind me asking this because I didn't warn you about it. I've spoken to somebody that worked for the household in the States, and they used the word dehumanizing their treatment. Have you heard anything similar when talking to your sources? I thought that word was that upset me, the word dehumanizing, to imagine being in a position where someone made you feel that way.
I mean, can't remember anyone using that particular word, but it certainly fits in with the overall pattern of behavior. Yeah.
Oh, it's just so upsetting. So when Courtiers comes out, do you get a similar email or piece of mail from Harry and Meghan's lawyers because they absolutely know who you are? Or do you get the sense that they're worried that Courtiers is going to reveal even more than the Times piece?
When I was writing Courtiers, obviously we went through great lengths to make sure it was legally watertight, and I had long conversations with lawyers. And when it came to Harry and Meghan, we had a discussion, and I was told, well, you can't just put one or two allegations to them. You have to kind of put everything to them. You can't cherry pick. And once you do that, they'll want to see the entire manuscript, and you won't want to do that. And it'll be very tiresome. The whole process will tie you up for weeks and weeks. It'll be very difficult, very painful. And the other thing you can do is not show them anything.
Wait, so is this a discussion with their team or your team?
No, my team.
Yeah.
So you show them everything, and it's going to be very painful and drawn out and go on forever, and it'll annoy the hell out of you.
Yes.
Or you could show them nothing. And in the end, we decided to show them nothing.
I think that's probably the best bet.
And never heard a word from them.
Wow. Oh, that's interesting. Because we know that they're willing to work with journalists. I don't know if and authors. I've had Tom Quinn tell me specifically that they've reached out to him and said, let us know next time you're working on something, and we'd love to contribute. We know that they secretly worked with Omid Scobie.
Yeah.
At the time, Meghan suggests to Harry you should sit down with Angela Levin for her book. I imagine that they are kicking themselves over that today. So we know that they want to have a say. Was their say spare?
Yes, they're say, but it's very interesting that, because if they read my book, there are bits in that which are sympathetic to them.
Yes.
There are bits which are critical of the royal family and not unsympathetic to them. So I haven't tried approaching them, but it'd be interesting because I have been public enemy #1 for them. Well, no, public enemy 2 or 3. I think there are a few people.
I got a couple of names above you.
There are a few names ahead, but I'm in the top 10. But it'd be interesting to see if they would entertain an approach from me, knowing that actually I can be fair.
Yes, you are. You are fair and you're kind. Did you laugh out loud at the Hollywood Reporter's dictator in high heels line?
Fantastic
How
line.
ridiculous is that? I mean, the Hollywood Reporters was a little sassier, and they got pushed back from Us Weekly, and then they did a series of interviews defending their work. I mean, I don't see that very often where a company, an editor and a publisher says, no, we feel so strongly about this that we're going to go on TV to defend it. And Hollywood doesn't push back as much as Harry and Meghan do in general. You don't see Brad Pitt going to a microphone every time some salacious story comes out about his divorce with Angelina Jolie.
Yeah.
You know, how much does the never complain, never explain strategy that the royal family lives by, how much does that benefit them, and how much does it not benefit Harry and Meghan the way that they push back on certain things but not others?
You know, if you push back, it extends the 24-hour news cycle to 48, 72 hours to weeks on end. And that's the real reason why you do, and it makes it much harder to keep quiet the next time you do want to keep quiet. I mean, that's why they do it.
Right.
So, you know, if Harry and Meghan want to deal with a constant barrage of media and being constantly in the headlines, well, push back. That's fine.
Because I had a story, a personal story time here. I had a story that she pushed back on last week or the week before, and my dad and my uncle said, "Don't go fighting it. Ignore it. Just ignore it. Let it go." Because of course, I'm like, well, this is my credibility. I'm worried about my credibility. It was Dolly Parton not doing her Netflix series,
Right.
And last night, I got, I said to my producer over there, I'm like, look, Radar Online says they have another source that says that this happened. And sometimes if you just sit back, the truth will come out,
Yeah.
which was ultimately the lesson that I learned.
Yes, it's a good lesson.
You don't have to have a meltdown. You don't, even if your feelings are hurt, and I think that they could learn a lot from that. If these stories aren't true, then there are going to be enough people singing their praises, enough former employees out there going, I don't know what you're talking about, I loved them. Because, you know, NDAs are very specific. I doubt they want you to sit down and talk to me if you leave working for them, but you can tell your yoga class that you worked for Meghan Markle and she was the best boss you've ever had, and we don't hear those stories.
Yeah.
I think that there's something, I think that speaks volumes. I know you want to go into Meghan's yoga class. I've had a source tell me that Harry and Meghan rarely are that. Yes, so I wanted to tell you about this. The source that told me dehumanizing. She says that Harry rarely sees Meghan's behavior. That when Meghan was unfriendly or when Meghan was unprofessional, allegedly, that Harry was not around, but if Harry happened to be around or Harry happened to walk in the room, he stepped in and would defend the employee. Does that surprise you, or have you heard something similar?
It's not a pattern of behavior I'm familiar with.
Really?
Put it like that. I mean, you know, certainly my sources around the time of the bullying story felt that they were both bullies.
Okay.
So Harry being the peacemaker and the defender, that's a new one on me, but I'm sure it's true.
That's so interesting, because the reason why I was confident in that is because the Hollywood Reporter, they don't say that he defends anybody, but they say he's the friendlier of the two, and that she kind of wears the pants, but he is Mr. Happy-Go-Lucky, and the sweet. Well, you were you've been a royal reporter forever. What was your opinion of Prince Harry prior to this marriage? Did he seem like a lighthearted individual? And had you ever heard he was a bully before this?
Never heard he was a bully before this. He was, what I've always said about Harry is he was someone without a filter. He just lets it all out.
He was unfiltered?
Harry Unfiltered. It's a new podcast series coming soon.
Right here, these two.
Which is both his good point and his bad point. It's his great virtue because he is very emotionally honest. He says what he thinks. He doesn't stop himself, and he could be very amusing and very lively, but also he sometimes doesn't stop to think.
Yeah, it could sometimes get him in trouble. I wanted to ask you about the internal, I guess internal is probably the wrong word. The royal family hires a third party to investigate the bullying allegations after your article, which from a PR perspective was a very obvious move because they're trying to say, we take your allegations very seriously, and the way we're going to deal with them is we're going to determine whether or not it's true. Okay, that sounds great. And then we discover that this investigation is going to be kept under lock and key forever and ever and ever. Yeah. I wanted to know what your opinion was on that. Is that investigation, the results of that investigation, are they protecting Meghan, or ultimately are they protecting themselves and keeping that private? Several
points. First of all, I think it was a PR blunder.
Really?
Because by saying there's going to be an investigation...
We wanted results.
We want results, and we're never going to get it.
Yeah.
So you've created a rod for your own back there immediately. Secondly...
But wouldn't it have looked bad for them just to be like, after your interview, they had to say something. They had to say something.
They had to say something. But, and the second point is, the investigation, I think, was always very narrow in its scope. It was procedural. It was about how they handled the allegations. It was never about, was Meghan a bully?
Oh. Yeah. Well, I think that's going to be new information to my audience.
Well, they should have read the fine print.
The fine print, yeah.
What was actually said at the time.
Yeah.
People always thought it
the bully investigation.
Yeah,
but it's really,
but it wasn't.
Did we act appropriately?
Did we act appropriately?
It was an HR investigation, really.
Exactly right. It was an HR investigation. And I think they didn't publish because they were protecting the institution. It wasn't about protecting Meghan.
And then if you are somebody that supports Meghan, or if you're defending Meghan, even if you're her lawyers or something, you could point to that and say, well, if there were really salacious allegations or stories in there, then you'd know about it. But since it's under lock and key, they probably didn't come up with anything dirty on Meghan. I mean, I think I'm sitting here going PR win, but you're right. It was really they blew that, huh?
Yeah.
And did you anticipate that we would get the results, or was the tone always?
I never thought for 1 second we'd hear the results.
When you read that announcement that they were going to do this, you thought...
I tried to get hold of it, but...
Yeah, hard did you
but
lose?
I was never going to get anywhere. It was very, it's just very senior people in the palace and the law firm that did it, and,
You lost your eyeballs in the back of your head.
You're on a hiding to nothing.
I mean, I do think that there are still so many questions about what happened within the palace during Meghan Markle's time there. Bullying allegations, racism allegations. Do you think we will ever know the truth? Is this something that will come out eventually, or is this going to remain a mystery? Because I talked to Tom Bauer yesterday, who's like, they could still talk. There's still more they could share. The palace always has to be weary of that Harry and Meghan, they're spare number 2. Harry tells the Telegraph, I believe, he ripped out 400 pages of the book. Meghan says she's found her diary at Frogmore. She tells the Cut she didn't sign an NDA. And even if they did release more, there were factual errors in Harry's book. There are his version of the truth that we always have to comprehend. So we can't even guarantee that would be the truth. Do you think we'll ever know the truth?
I think pretty much broadly we know the truth, but there are some aspects which we don't know the truth. There are several people who haven't talked, some very crucial people who haven't talked, and I don't think ever will talk. And one of the, because I don't really believe Harry and Meghan have got anything more significant to say, because that would imply they were holding back, and I kind of don't believe they're holding back. If Harry ripped out 400 pages of this book, it's only because they were boring, Harry.
Yeah.
And you were repeating yourself.
Yeah. Also, I don't care about you getting in fights with your brother. I get in fights with my brothers all the time, not physical fights, but I fight with my brothers all the time. It's human nature, and I don't think there's anything salacious about you and your brother, having some sort of verbal spat about whatever it is.
But I think the really big story we haven't got to the bottom of is exactly what happened when Meghan allegedly went to the palace and said, she was struggling and asked for help, supposedly, and help was unforthcoming. I think it's a very complicated picture. I think Meghan's version is possibly disingenuous, but it's also based on something, and exactly what happened and why would be really interesting to find out. But the other reason why we won't ever get to the truth is, at what point have you got to the truth? Because I know Kate hasn't spoken, but if you take the tears over the bridesmaids' dresses story, she made me cry. No, she made me cry. It's like,
who cares?
Slightly, who cares? And also, oh my God, how do we know he's telling the truth?
Yeah,
it's all too tiresome.
Right. No, and I mean, when I say who cares, I know some people will be mad at me. It's not that I love Catherine, and I hope Catherine didn't cry, and I hope that this was all been blown out of proportion. But even so, it just seems like in the grand scheme of things that certain people weren't being adults, and that things aren't always. This is your second wedding. Why are you being drama? Yeah. This is your second wedding. I saw you talk to The Sun, our friends over at The Sun, about this Royal Reconciliation Summit. What was your first reaction to that story? Immediately I think Harry's lonely, and I think that Harry is bored in Montecito.
I think both those things are true, without any doubt. To call it a reconciliation summit is over-egging it a lot.
Yeah.
But, it all fits in with a slight pattern we begin to see of Harry in a bit more of an emollient mood. In that BBC interview after he lost the court case over his security, when he talked about members of the family not being able to forgive him, as opposed to he not being able to forgive his family, that was a very significant change. So maybe, just maybe, things are moving in another direction. Long way to go, plenty can go wrong, and we don't really know where it's heading, but it's a slightly different mood now than what it was.
What is the message that the king sends if we find out that they're communicating regularly, and that we know that he sees or visits with Prince Harry? I know that the royal reconciliation, I'm jumping the gun. It's too soon, and I probably shouldn't be using those words. But people will assume, if they know that the king and Prince Harry are communicating or that they're visiting with one another, I know my audience will be like, oh, he's back in the fray, or he's back in the mix.
Yeah.
What's the message that the king is sending to not only royal watchers that are very dedicated to this family and invested in this family, but also working, duty-fueled members of the British royal family by having any communication with Prince Harry without Harry taking any accountability for the hurt he's caused the family in the last few years of the Great Escape?
The message he's sending is that he loves his son, and he doesn't want his last years to be full of pain and rancor.
Oh my gosh, what a grown-up, appropriate response. Valentine, you disappoint me. I'm just kidding. Well, you're right, because in Spare, Harry tells us that Charles says to him at Prince Philip's funeral, he says to both of his sons, don't make the last few years of my life a misery.
Yeah, exactly.
So you're right. That would be the king just wanting to communicate with his son. Do you think that people will riot in the streets if Harry and Meghan were to return as just on a friendly way, just maybe to spend Christmas with the family?
I think that they will remain divisive, but if it's with the blessing of the king, and particularly if William softens his attitude, which is a much tougher ask, as we know, I think people will possibly begin to soften their attitude.
Well, you've given me some horrifying stories of Prince Philip. Please tell me you have some positive experiences with Prince William.
I have only positive experiences with Prince William, who allegedly has a temper, but I've never seen it.
I know. Well, that was what I was concerned about when I was reading Spare. I feel like that elevated some of those rumors that, I mean, is it fair to call it a whale's temper because of Prince Philip, and we've heard King Charles? I mean, we saw with the pen around coronation time, a little frustration. Is that a whale's trait?
More than possibly. Well, yeah, I mean, and also, King George VI, he had a temper, and indeed George V as well. So, there's a royal temper going down that bloodline.
And I felt like I saw that in the BBC interview with Prince Harry, this like frustration that he wasn't getting his way. Yeah. Were you sad when you watched that interview? Because some people said, I felt sorry for the guy. Or did you think, this is a mistake because this is not how the palace or that family operates, to air dirty laundry for the world to see?
Yeah, I just thought it was Harry. He hadn't stopped to think. He wants to let it all out. He was continuing to be in let it all out mood.
And it's the same, it's my understanding that it's the same woman, Miss Maines, that we saw here for this private meeting that also set up that BBC interview. It all feels very American strategy to me, yeah. Between the BBC interview and then coming over here for drinks to negotiate a private phone call between father and son. Do you think that Harry's just completely adopted the American way, or do you believe the stories about them trying to recreate a royal court within Montecito?
I don't believe this nonsense about trying to create a royal court in Montecito. I don't even know what that means. I just think they've just got people working for them. I mean,
right.
Really, please.
And when we talk about the turnover and the bully allegations, do you think that we're seeing the turnover in the States? 25 people is a significant amount of people because it's not really 5 years. For 2 years, we were all locked in our house due to COVID. Yep. So I feel like it's actually a shorter time span that we saw this cycle of people. Do you think that potentially some of the stories that you heard through researching courtiers and that initial piece that ran before the Oprah Winfrey interview, that maybe some of those experiences are happening in America, and that's why they're churning through their Montecito royal court?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. As if they were difficult to work for then, and they're difficult to work for now. And
you said something earlier about how Meghan has a hard time listening. Is it the I mean, you look at their roster, they're impressive names. They have LinkedIn profiles. You can see the other people that they've worked for.
They're really impressive people. But the problem with Meghan is, I mean, she's very smart. She went to a good university. She's obviously got a brain on her. But she's one of those people who always thinks she's the smartest person in the room. And it may not necessarily be the case. Of course, no one ever confused Harry.
Well, when you're around Harry 24/7, you are.
Well, I was going to say, no one ever confused Harry with the smartest person in the room.
Did you ever imagine that this would be the route that they would take? And I would not be surprised if you said yes, because I feel like Meghan is very similar to Fergie. And it's not an insult, but Fergie comes over to the United States. She's doing QVC. she is paid by charities to be the special guest. So if you want to, if you're in like Phoenix, Arizona, or some moneyed city, a charity will have one of these royals come out, and then you pay $5,000 to sit 3 tables away from Fergie, but it's all for a good cause.
Yeah.
But typically she's compensated for being there and for being the draw. So I'm not criticizing Fergie for cookbooks or QVC or working with Oprah Winfrey on multiple projects. Fergie also helped produce that Queen Victoria movie that with Emily Blunt that was gorgeous. Beatrice is in it for 3 seconds. But did you see this path where she's using Instagram to sell jam and skirts that she's worn previously that are beige? I mean, I feel like these two were capable of so much more 5 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, when Meghan was first on the scene, I can't say that I foresaw her gimlet-eyed focus on making money. But I'll tell you this, before it all blew up, so this would have been before Brexit, the royal correspondents were having lunch together. It was a fun lunch, and at the end, and we were beginning to suspect things were not entirely happy in the Sussex household, and we had a game, and we were all going to write down our predictions for the year. And this is absolutely true because I've got a photograph of this piece of paper. I wrote down, I think they'll emigrate to Canada and Harry will become the Duke of Vancouver. I think that's a win for me.
Yes.
Not 100% right, but in the right direction.
It was in the right direction. They were almost there. Well, it's been such a pleasure to talk to you. You have a new book coming out. It's coming out September 11th in the United States.
Well, I think it'll be available in the States. It's not having a separate publication, but I think it will be available. And as I found out last time with Courtiers, because the thing about my last book, Courtiers, it was published in the UK several months before it was published in the US.
And I have to flirt with strangers to get it sent to me in a timely manner.
There are very easy means which clever people do, and I can't remember what it's called, but you can get books sent over from the UK. So people will be able to get. But I think it will be available in US bookshops. Yeah.
One of the fun things that you told me one of the first times we spoke was that you were updating Courtiers with a great Catherine story, and I was so excited to get the update and to see you broke that it was Catherine that really wanted to keep in Recollections May Vary.
That's right.
That was what they weren't sure about, this iconic sentence, but you revealed, and I have to tell you, I made a T-shirt with Catherine's beautiful legs. Remember the red dress she wore,
right.
and she's coming out of a car, and her legs looked amazing. And I have a T-shirt that I made of her legs coming out of that car, and underneath it says "Recollections May Vary" in a Vogue-like font, inspired by you. Just so you know. But it's been so much fun to talk to you. What is the new book called?
The new book, it's about the relationship between the monarchy and the government, and it's called Power in the Palace.
Power in the Palace, and we're going to talk to you about that as soon as it comes out. Valentine Low, thank you so much for your time today. And I know you love this video. Agree with us, disagree with us, let us know in the comments below. Make sure you like, subscribe, and share this video with the biggest Valentine Low fan. Thanks, everyone.